The bill establishes early childhood education as a regulated profession. It's based on the recommendations from OPR. And the great thing about this is that at the workforce, state, and national levels, the recommendations for this profession are the same. One of the analogies I like to use that really helps us wrap our brains around this early childhood education profession is that of nursing, right? So if you go into a nurse's office in a school or the emergency room or your regular doctor's appointment for a well visit, you know that there are levels of nursing, right? Designations of nursing, LNA, LPN, RN, right? And you might, even if you're unfamiliar with nursing requirements, you have a general idea of what those layers mean, right? And it's consistent across all settings and nationally. That's what this bill is aiming to do. We would have an ECE1, ECE2, ECE3 designations for the early childhood profession. ECE2 would be associate's level, ECE3 would be bachelor's level, and ECE1 would be established with some in-person field experience combined with 3 college courses. Important clarification here. The difference between legislation and rulemaking. Legislation, which is what we're in the process of helping shepherd along to pass, defines what the profession is, what the profession does, and who the profession includes. The folks at OPR recognized in their extensive research just how complex early childhood education is, much like nursing. And so they agreed that this profession, just like nursing, deserves to have its own governing board made up of people from the field who make the rules around what counts for each qualification. That was a huge win that OPR agreed that independent board was needed so that we could have people representing family childcare and centers and others representing us when those decisions are being made. So the bill was introduced in, I think it was January, the end of January, early February, in the House Government Operations Committee. And it started in the Government Operations Committee because OPR is part of the Secretary of State's office. Secretary of State is government operations, right? Usually the stuff that we're looking at pops up in human services or education first, but House Government Ops, that's where it all began. And that was H182. And then H454 happened and kind of took the committee by storm. The bill kind of hung out on the wall. So a companion bill, which had all of the same language as H182, was introduced in the Senate, and that bill was S119. So that started in the Senate Government Operations Committee. There were 2 bill sponsors in that committee, Senator Becca White and Senator Allison Clarkson, and they gave so much attention to S119 and really took lots of testimony and really debated the merits and the language in the bill. They made some amendments to the bill. They added some language around a related field, not just early childhood education as a degree option, which makes sense. They wanted to talk about a phased-in timeline, which is something that was part of the original recommendations from OPR and was included in the Sunrise Review. Bill was having a long on-ramp for folks. Nobody wants anyone to be excluded from the field who's already in the fields as a result of this bill, right? So having a long on-ramp really makes sense. The other amendment that the Senate made was to add a 4th legacy license. So remember, we have ECE1, ECE2, ECE3. They added a 4th category for family child care provider. These are folks who don't intend on getting to that ECE2 level, right? And it only applies to family child care providers who are in business operating when the bill takes effect. This is only the Senate's amendments, right? These are the amendments that were made by Senate government operations. So in order to move the profession along, what they did is attach it to an OPR omnibus bill, which was H472. But because the ECE profession language was inserted into that bill, it had a vehicle to move through other committees in the Senate. So it went to Senate Finance, it went to Senate Appropriations, passed out of those committees, and it went to the Senate floor as H472. So the great news was that everybody who was there that day on the Senate floor, all but one senator, voted to pass. So the House said, we don't have time this legislative session to debate this thoroughly enough to give this the attention that we think it deserves. So we're going to pull that language back out of H472 so we can pass along H472. And we promise to take up the ECE Profession Bill next legislative session. So that would be this January, which is great news. But it will go back to the House in that H182 format, likely starting in House Human Services. We also expect it to go through House Education and Government Operations. The thing to remember here is that all of those Senate amendments that I was talking about with the added language, the other clarifier was that this bill would only apply to CDD regulated programs. The legacy clause for family childcare providers, those were Senate amendments, and those won't be included right off the bat in this H182. And we just have to follow the lead of committee chairs to see how those amendments are or are not taken up for H182. So we'll be paying close attention to that. Just like last legislative session, OPR is going to take the lead, and Vermont AEYC will be here as we were last year to help gather witnesses, to support folks giving testimony, writing op-eds, submitting written testimony. We'll track support and concerns, and we'll keep the workforce updated just like we did this year.